You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynne Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday the 12th of November. Marxist BBC, £450,000 payout for George Entwistle. Labour councillor gets elected, then goes on a world cruise for 7 weeks. Where is hope, not hate in North Croydon, Mr Galloway? Axminster, a 2-minute perspective from John Puxty. Golden Dawn stops gays blaspheming Jesus Christ. Venice afloat. Taylor Swift gets her own back on Can Ye Jackass West. Thought for the day, fear and cowardice do not help our cause. And finally, a rare wine found in an abandoned house in China. UK news. The failed Marxist BBC has come under heavy attack by TV licence payers over the suggested £450,000 payoff to Director General George Entwistle. Entwistle is to be given a 1-year salary, although he's only been the Director General for only 54 days and actually quit. Lord Patten said it was one of the saddest evenings of my public life. At the heart of the BBC is its role as a trusted global news organisation, he continued. Under normal circumstances he would only be eligible to a 6-month payout by the BBC, and that's what has angered many British people. It is claimed that Entwistle is being paid the full year's salary because he is helping with the Jimmy Savile inquiry. Yesterday on BBC News, Harriet Harman was ushered in front of the cameras to try and clean her image up and that of the Labour Party's involvement in its horrific sex crimes against children, in which 2 of its Lord Mayors were child rapists plus 2 more guilty of similar crimes against children. A newly elected Labour councillor for East Ayrshire, George Mayor, has decided to take a nice, long, luxurious holiday for 7 weeks, just 6 weeks after being elected by his constituents. One angry constituent said that he knew he had the trip coming up and that he should not have stood in the election to represent the people. George Mayor is said to be paid about £16,000 a year to polish a seat with his backside. One World Date reporter commented, "It's unbelievable. The British National Party gets the finger pointed at it for loving its own people, and the people elect someone like this to take money and sail around the world. Something is seriously wrong in Great Britain today." Anti-white and anti-British George Galloway has attacked the Labour Party for putting up what he calls a white man in the Croydon North by-election. Galloway went on to say he wanted the black and Asian vote and that Labour had lots of minority candidates they could have put up as a candidate, but they chose a white man as they normally do. George Galloway is the indigenous people of Britain's worst enemy, one nationalist commented. The meeting of the Respect Party was attended by only around 60 people in a nightclub in London. Falling over itself to get there was the managing director of anti-white magazine The Voice. A World Date writer commented, "That magazine that has not yet realised that white people were the first slaves to Arabs and North Africans. In fact, a staggeringly high figure for the day of 1.25 million of us. Are those slavers or their descendants going to apologise to us?" Now I hand you over to John Puxty for a 2-minute perspective on Axminster. He'll be giving the World Date reports on our countryside and places of interest until the new year, when he will take over a parliamentary report once a week. I hand you over to John.
Axminster, a quiet Devon secret. On the lush green rolling hills of the Devon-Dorset border, beside the shallow, non-navigable River Axe, huddles the ancient Celtic market town of Axminster. Today the town is most famous for giving its name to a type of carpet, but in Roman times it was a border town with its own fort. The Fossway from Lincoln to Seaton and the old Roman Dorchester to Exeter Road had its junction here. The town was an important settlement at the time of King Alfred in the 9th century. Raiding Danes swept through here on their way to Exeter as the king fought to save Saxon Wessex from being conquered. 200 years later, Axminster was recorded in the Domesday Book of 1086 as having 40 households. The carpet industry was set up in 1755. The early carpets were all handmade and took weeks or sometimes months to finish. When a carpet was completed, it was celebrated with a peal of St Mary's church bells. In 2006, the cattle market closed as a result of the foot and mouth epidemic. It had been held every week for almost 800 years from when the market charter was granted in 1210. The town was on the coaching route from London to Exeter, and in 1760 a coaching inn called the George Hotel was opened. 17 or 18 coaches a day would stop there for refreshments. In 2012, carpets are still made. There is a famous craft potter who sells his wares at Liberty's in London, an even more famous riverside cottage, and a winery. Axminster is the secret pearl of East Devon that you should make a point of visiting.
Thank you very much, John. Euronews. The Greek political party known as Golden Dawn, scorned by the Marxist BBC every chance they get, has shown how powerful it really is. The Greeks' far-right party put a stop to blasphemy by a gay theatre group making its own adaptation of the Christian play Corpus Christi, meaning the body of Christ. Angry Greek people supported Golden Dawn in its brave and successful attempt to close down the attack on the Greek Christian way of life by homosexuals. Homosexuals, whose only interest in Christianity is to infiltrate it and destroy it for its Marxist cause. Greek police are said to be joining the Golden Dawn party in their thousands. All the left-wing press can do is report that the Greek police are being infiltrated. Venice has found itself underwater. The beautiful Italian city with its fabulous buildings has had a rise of water in its streets as high as nearly 6 feet. With the rise of the tide and continuing bouts of rainfall, Venice, known as the floating city, has this week lived up to its name. Gondolas are in full swing at the moment to take tourists to and from the city. World News. Remembrance Sunday British soldier murdered by those he tried to help. A British soldier has been shot dead by a Muslim gunman. The incident took place on Remembrance Sunday at a football match between soldiers making up international teams at a shared base between Allies and the new Afghan army. The Muslim, named as Mohammed Ashraf, was himself shot and then captured by British soldiers. He later died from his wounds. The fallen soldier was from the Royal Scots Borderers, the 1st Battalion of the Royal Regiment of Scotland. This year has seen a dozen British soldiers murdered by the Afghan army or police. A World Date reporter has stated, "Will there be an inquiry and storm about this crime? Will the soldier's family receive financial compensation from the killer's family? No, I think not. Christians and Muslims will never stand side by side. The diversity is too great." White female pop singer Taylor Swift has had a fabulous evening at an MTV awards ceremony last night by achieving 3 gongs. At her previous awards ceremony, Taylor Swift was humiliated by black rapper Kanye West, who ran onto the stage during her speech and grabbed her microphone to announce that black R&B singer Beyonce had a better video than Taylor's winning one. Last night, Kanye Jackass West, as President Obama called him, sat in his chair with his mouth firmly shut. Thought for the day. Fear and cowardice do not help our cause. Now, when I talk about fear and cowardice, I am not talking about the British National Party or its personnel, members, activists, whatever. The people I am talking about rarely show their faces, but they are a powerful force because their form of bigotry appeals to the masses that are ignorant of what lies behind their methods. The battle that Arthur Redfern won in Strasbourg is a truly wonderful landmark, and his fight represents in total the battles we everyday nationalists have in this country. You will notice the statement from Serco on Mr Redfern and the result. It intimates that Serco and his co-workers and customers have no fight with Mr Redfern or indeed his nationalist politics. What all these people are frightened of are the attacks, both verbal and physical, from the left-wing socialists, the UAF and the unions. You will find that all the troubles the British National Party have had with the media and public are blown out of all proportion by these leftist Marxist bastards. And that is what they are. Bastards, pure and simple, and ignorant ones at that. You would think, as the British National Party stands for the common man and the working man, that in principle these two sections of society would be firmly behind us. And to some extent some are. But those who have been alienated by propaganda from slightly better educated left-wingers are definitely not batting on the nationalist team. Apart from the usual internal wrangling of all political parties, we in the British National Party have had to put up with ruined venues, cancellations of meetings, and sometimes these bastards even crawl out of bed to stagger around and shout abuse at us. And have you noticed the sort of people they are? With the exception of the great unwashed of the Unite Against Fascism trolls, the remainder seem to be middle-classed, middle-aged and surrounded by an air of social do-gooding that is nauseous in the extreme. Everybody needs someone to hate is the old saying, and nothing is truer than that. I cannot count the times these prats have frightened genuine hoteliers, pub owners and meeting hall managers into either stopping us going at all or at very least never being allowed to hold a meeting or conference on these premises again. They will stoop to any level, that of blackmail and even threatened physical violence, against their own kind to prevent us holding our meetings and conferences. Not for us, the same venues in the same areas year after year like the other political parties. This is very wrong. I myself are of the opinion that whilst some bugger is talking about you, they're leaving off some other poor unfortunate, but of course this doesn't apply in these cases. The people they are frightening are ordinary men and women who probably have no political bias at all, but just want customers for their hotels and centres. And yet these are the people, like Arthur Redfern's customers, who are frightened and afraid of doing what is right. Why are the left-wingers so foul? Why do they operate under the thinly disguised umbrella of caring and integration? Why do they remain so ignorant of their own preachings of so-called fair play and open discussion? It is because we are dealing with, in essence, communists and communism. Now, communism or the Marxist ethos is all very well on paper. It looks good. It looks caring for those who cannot care for themselves. It puts greedy employers and people lucky enough to have had an education or have a profession firmly in their place, or rather out of their place, usually 6 foot under, and believes everybody in the state should be equal. Fine. I'm reminded of George Orwell in Animal Farm. All pigs are equal, but some are more equal than others. This is why communism in its various forms turns into true fascism, because you must always have a head of state or country and laws or there would be chaos, such as the chaos that followed the communist-inspired revolutions of Russia, China and many others. Terrible death tolls of the very people who had been educated or feeding the masses paid for it with their lives. Even the French Revolution was communist-inspired under the awful guise of freedom and power to the people. Now make no mistake, the people who adhere to that cause are not peacemakers, nor do they really care for the people en masse. The treatment we get in the British National Party from these imitation and phony socialists is indicative of the way they would treat the people we want to help if they got into power. We would be a forgotten people, similar to North Korea, and the communist state would prove no better for us in the UK than an Islamic state, which is much the same without the religious connotations. I do not think that all our opposers are evil, but I do think what they do is evil. Freedom of speech and association is a right which has been endemic in this country for many years and is slowly sliding over the horizon of reality. Is it a communist state that punishes people for their beliefs and takes their jobs away? Is it a communist media that propagandizes everything that comes before our eyes? Is it a communist state that denies freedom of choice and movement? Is it a communist state that denies a monarch full rights over her people? Is it a communist state that beggars its own people to give money to other countries? Is it a communist state where child abuse and sex slaves are part of the fabric of a certain hierarchy? Is it a communist state that strips a country of its self-dependency and pride? Is it a communist state that will not brook any form of nationalism? It may be, but it is also life in the UK at the moment for nationalists. There should be a large sign over England and the rest of the world: beware the peacemakers. Beware the wolf in sheep's clothing. It even says in the Bible, and I am not a Bible thumper, that the Antichrist will come under the guise of a peacemaker. Peace itself is not a right, it has to be earned, usually over many dead bodies. Just don't let them be the bodies of true nationalists, because once we go, like the bees, the rest of you will go as well. And finally, I do not know whether to laugh or cry on this one. 10,000 bottles of Chateau Lafite Rothschild have been found in an abandoned house in China. However, as there are only 50,000 bottles of genuine Chateau Lafite Rothschild imported into China each year, police believe it may be a fake and are now searching for the illicit workshop where it might have been produced. The owner of the house, a man called Zhu, told police his house had been empty for 9 years and he knew nothing about the potentially valuable find. If these bottles of red wine are proved to be genuine, they could be worth up to £10 million. However, up to March this year, Chateau Lafite Rothschild have won 6 lawsuits against Chinese companies over fake wine and have been awarded over £80,000 compensation. This presenter says if I could go to China as official wine taster, that would be the ticket. No problem, they sound real to me. After all, red wine is just red wine, isn't it? You have been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynne and I wish you all a very good night.